Hello and welcome to another sewing tutorial. My name is Betty and today we're gonna sew this beautiful and light summer dress together. This dress is perfect to wear every day. It's super easy to make and I will explain everything during this video, from how to construct the pattern to how to sew everything and how to assemble everything. This video is the second of a series of 5 where we'll show you how to sew different summer items without a pattern, and the videos are up every Friday. And if you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, then leave a comment down below or text me on my Instagram. So now let's get right into it. Now, what do you need to make this dress? First of all, the fabric. I'm using this linen viscose blend, but I think cotton would also look nice for this dress, depending on how you want the dress to turn out. And after that, you need a matching thread. Then you need an elastic band. This is not elastic thread, but a band. Looks like this when you buy it. Mine is 7 millimeters, and I will show that to you closer in just a second. And to make the straps, we will need either a security pin or a hair bobbin, which I will also show closer in a second. And that's all we need. Before we can start sewing, we need to prepare the pattern, and therefore we need some measurements. So for the first measurement, take your measuring tape and put it around your body, just over your bust where you want the dress to end. Measure the circumference and note down the measurement. And you do the same for the second measurement, which is the circumference of under your bust. And you also note that measurement down. And for the third measurement, you take your measuring tape, place it under your bust and see how long you want your dress to be. So here I drew the dress for you to get a better understanding of the measurements. This one was the first measurement that we took. Mine was 88 centimeters. And this one was the second measurement that we took. For me, it was 81 centimeters. And the length that you want is totally up to you. For me, it was 55 centimeters. And now to calculate how big our pattern pieces have to be, we just need to calculate 2 things. First of all, the first measurement, which was the circumference of over our bust. For me, that was 88 centimeters. You divide that by 2. So 88 by 2 is 44 for me. And then you multiply that by 1.5 because you want the fabric together. That is 66 for me. And you add 2 centimeters of seam allowance to each side. So 68 centimeters for me. So this is going to be the first side of our pattern piece. And for the second side, we add 2 centimeters. This is going to be the part which is over our bust. Then 17 centimeters for our bust. You can also adapt this measurement if you want to have it bigger or smaller. And to that, you add the length of the skirt that you want, which for me was 55 centimeters. And in the end, you also add 4 centimeters because we have 2 centimeters of seam allowance down there and 2 centimeters of seam allowance up here. And for me, that's 78 centimeters in total. So our first measurement was this one, which goes around our body, and the second measurement was this one, which goes from the top to down. So for the main dress, we now cut 2 rectangles with the measurements that we just took. And then we cut 4 rectangles for the straps as well, which are 60 centimeters long and 3 centimeters wide. And these are already our pattern pieces. So we should have 6 pattern pieces in the end. So now we should have 6 pattern pieces, 2 times the big rectangles and 4 times the straps. And what we're gonna do now, we're gonna put away the straps for now, and we will work on the main dress. And now we're gonna overlock all the sides of the big rectangles to keep the fabric from fraying. And for those of you who don't have an overlock machine, just as me, you can also use a zigzag stitch to do that. I have this sewing foot that I do it with, but you can also use a normal sewing foot. First of all, I'm putting my new matching thread on the sewing machine. And now I'm replacing this normal sewing foot that I have with the one that I use to overlock my pieces. But as I said, you can also use the normal sewing foot with a zigzag stitch. I knot both ends to prevent the thread from coming undone. After you finish that, your seam should look like this. And now we're going to do that for the other piece as well. So now that we overlocked all the sides, we take our pattern pieces. Now what we're going to do is we take the upper part from our pattern piece and we fold it down 2 centimeters. That's going to be the hem of the top of our dress. So we take this, fold it down 2 centimeters, and we iron along this. And we do this for both pieces. Now we'll turn it around and go over it as well from the other side to make sure the fold stays in place, because we're not gonna sew over it just now. After you iron the 2 centimeters to the inside, I'm gonna turn this pattern piece to the inside now, and we need to make some markings. The markings show where the elastic's going to be in the end. So I take my ruler now and my sewing chalk, and I'm gonna draw 2 lines now. Make sure this upper part is straight, and take your ruler, mark a 2 centimeter line, which should be more or less exactly underneath the folded edge. And now we're gonna make another line, which is 17 centimeters from the first line. This is going to be the underbust now, this line. And we also do this for the other pattern piece. After we made our markings, we will now prepare the elastics. For that we need the 2 first measurements that we took. And now we're gonna cut 2 pieces from the elastic. One's the first measurement and one the second measurement. For me the first measurement was 88 centimeters. So I'm taking my elastic. That's convenient. And I measure 88 centimeters. This should be without stretching it. And now, as we have 2 parts, the front and the back panel, cut them in half. And then I cut my second measurement from the elastic, which was 81. And I will also divide it by 2 for the front and for the back panel. After I prepared those elastic bands, I will now make markings on them. I will take this one, this was the smaller one that I had, and I will mark half of it, mark the 1/4 and 3/4. And with these markings now, it's much easier for me to sew the elastic band to the front and the back panel. After marking all 4 elastic bands, we will now also put markings on the front and the back panel. Now we will also add markings on our panels. I put my panel left side down. I fold it in half. Then I add my half markings on the both lines that we did earlier. And now I will also add quarter markings. And now we're going to sew the elastic band to the panels already. We're going to take the elastic band, we sew it to the panel, and then we stretch it while sewing, so that in the end we have this gathering. And we're going to make sure that the markings from our elastic bands coincide with the markings that we have on our panel. So let's do it. The first thing I'm doing is now I change back my sewing foot to my normal foot that I have. I will stay with a zigzag stitch. So now I'm taking my panel. Doesn't matter if it's front or back because they're both the same. And we're gonna sew over both lines now. And I take my elastic band and I only place it on the pattern piece. So the first thing that we're doing is to make sure that the elastic band is sewn to the panel. So we just go a little bit over this now, back and forth, and we don't stretch it for now. So now my elastic band should be in place. And now I lift my sewing foot and I place the elastic band inside, so it's on top, in between of those, inside of my sewing foot like this. I put my sewing foot back down and now I keep sewing a straight line, and now I can stretch my elastic band so that my markings coincide with the ones on the pattern to create the gathering. So let's do this. Do it slowly because you have to concentrate on 2 things. First of all, sew a straight line, and second of all, stretch your elastic band the right amount. So take your time. Just like that, we already sewed the first elastic band to our panel. And this is how it's going to look from the right side. And now we're going to do it with the other elastic as well. And remember, you don't have to sew all along with the elastic band because we still have 1 centimeter of seam allowance for sewing the panels together in the end. And we're going to do this also for the other pattern piece now. So this is how the 2 panels should look like now, with the elastic attached. We have this bust area here, and from down there is going to be the skirt. And now we're gonna sew them together, and the main dress will be almost finished and already. Now to sew them together, we're gonna place them right sides together first. And now we're gonna fold the seam allowance from the upper part down on both sides, and we're gonna pin them together on the sides. elastic parts are also on top of each other. Here as well. And now when everything is pinned, we're gonna sew along the sides of the dress with a seam allowance of 1 centimeter with a straight stitch. So first of all, I'm gonna change my zigzag stitch to a straight stitch, and then I place my dress under my sewing foot, and I'm gonna sew from the top to down with a seam allowance of 1 centimeter. Now you can see on the sides that the two elastic bands meet each other. And we're going to do this on the other side as well. Now the dress should look like this after we sewed the sides together. And now it's time to hem the bottom of the dress. For that, we measure how long we want it to be in the end. We can try it on and see how much we like it, and then we fold the seam to the inside of the dress, iron over there, and then sew over there. To hem the dress, first we have to iron the seam allowance apart to get a nicer look. After that, we fold the rest of the fabric to the inside and we iron that as well. So I'm happy with the length of my dress, and I still have a lot of fabric left. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna fold this one more time to the inside. I'm gonna take these needles out and iron that as well. And then I repin it again. So I sewed over it with 2 stitches. One time straight stitch and then a straight stitch right next to it, which makes it look like this in the end. And now the main part of the dress is already finished, and the next part that we're gonna do is the straps. To make the straps, we now need the small and long pieces that we cut, the strap parts. In my last video I already explained how we make the straps, but I will explain it again here. So if you already know how to make the straps, feel free to skip this part and just do it by yourself. So first of all, we're gonna fold the strap part in half and iron over it so it stays in place. You can also pin it if you want to, but you don't have to. And this we're gonna do it for all the 4 straps now. After we folded all the 4 strap parts, we're now gonna sew along 1 centimeter from the folded edge. And now after we did that, we can cut off excess fabric from the sides. Make sure not to cut off too much, because otherwise, if it's too close to the sewing line here, the strap might open. After you cut the excess fabric from the side of the strap, We will now turn it around. Therefore, we either need the security pin or we need the hair bobbin. Both methods work the same, but I prefer to do it with the hairpin. So first, what I'm gonna do is I take one end of the strap and I cut from the folded edge inside the strap, but only halfway. We don't want to come too close to the sewing line so that this thing opens in the end. Just like. And then we take either the hair bobbin or the security pin and we place the long side of the hair bobbin through the small part that we just cut in, and then inside the long part. And this small part of the hair bobbin is outside the small part but also inside the big part. I'm gonna show it to you like this, and now they're both inside the long part. Hope you can see it. And now we put it all inside and we turn the strap inside out. By moving the hair bobbin through the strap. And once you're done, you can remove the hair bobbin and turn everything inside out. And this is our first strap. Now we're going to do this 3 more times for the other straps. After we turned all the straps, we will now iron over them to make them more flat. Now they're going to look like this. So now that we have the 4 straps ready, we will attach them to the dress. To do this, we now chose the place that we want to have our straps and we pin them in place. And now if you like the location of your straps, you can sew over the seam allowance that we folded in the beginning. To keep the strap in place before we start to sew, you need to hand sew it to your dress first. And make sure to stretch a little bit your the top, because now it's all gathered. And the last thing that we do is tie the ends. And cut this part off. And that's the finished dress. And just like that, we finished our dress. I'm so in love with how mine turned out, and I hope you love yours too. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Share this video with your sewing bestie. And now, see you next week with part 3 of this series.